Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now, recently, I went ahead and sampled a tier list made by one of my followers on Reddit over on the MasakoX subreddit. You should go and check that out, by the way. And felt that it might have been quite a good chance to have a bit of a retrospective on nearly all of the stories that Havrok and I have spearheaded over the years. There were quite a few of them that I would probably want to go back and redo perhaps. I could have probably done better tackling them, to be honest. This story being one of them. At first it seemed okay, but then it sort of became a little rushed when I went back and reviewed it. Ultimately, it wasn't really all that fun by the end of it. Although Raditz did get to feature in it and become a bigger brother figure to the ape Kakarot. I mean, that's got to count for something, right? Raditz survives in that story. If you'd like to see that original version of the story for yourself, you can definitely check it out up top, but for now, let's start to plan out our redo of this narrative. Now, with that previous entry, I decided to try and make a hybrid narrative of the Minus and original Z stories, and unlike the hybridization I did for the Gine story, where that actually worked. So here, I'm going to try a different sort of hybrid story. Yes, we still have the idea of Gine existing because, come on, you gotta. And all the stuff that was told in the Minus lore, but not the actual timeline. Here, like in the Bardock special, Kakarot is not a toddler, but an infant. He has absolutely no recollection of his parents whatsoever. He is a blank canvas, but with Saiyan instincts, and he will never have that bump on the bonce that would be the catalyst to make him a more endearing person for Grandpa Gohan, and far less trouble. He's going in on hard mode for this one. So with that, let's set the scene, and yes, there will be more than one part before I hear you asking about it. I'm not going to rush this one. Let's begin. So, we still have the situation of Kakarot being sent off to Earth by the Saiyans before planet Vegeta exploded, and he still lands in the same place, being found by Grandpa Gohan in the middle of Mount Paozu. Everything up until the moment Goku falls off down that cliff happens as intended. Hey, let's say he does still fall down the cliff, but he doesn't hit his head this time. He is very much in bad shape because, of course you would be, but Gohan is transfixed at the fact that Goku even survived that. That must have been 500 feet and Goku only sustained a couple of broken bones and was knocked out for a while? Oh my goodness, what is he made out of? Goku is aware that Grandpa Gohan did save his life and that he is okay thanks to the care of this old man. But instead of him becoming a completely different person like he is in the original and being nice, Goku instead tries harder to be less of a pain for the old man. I mean, even he could say that if he'd just been left to rot at the bottom of that cliff, well, he wouldn't be around at all. Even a Saiyan knows about honor from an innate level, and would show gratitude to someone who cared for them to some extent. That's where I think I fell down on the last one, that Goku became completely irredeemable and was without any kind of, niceties. Here, I think it's best to kind of balance it off. I had to remind myself, no one is truly good or evil, so there's got to be some kind of redeeming qualities for a Saiyan child, even if they're not as nice. As a result, when Goku is fully recovered, Gohan notices that Goku is acting much less animalistically than he was before. But he's still not a lovely child by any means. He's just less likely to lash out than before. Goku, meanwhile, starts to actually respect this old man, a lot more than before. Now, this isn't the emotional state of love that any child would have for their parental figure, but he had homed him, fed him, and now protected him from death, and as Goku grew up, he started to become more and more independent from Grandpa Gohan. He still lived on Mount Paozu with him, and coming back for meals and whatnot, and of course sleeping, because hey, a bed's better than a rock, but he wouldn't spend that much time bonding with his caregiver otherwise. Instead, he chose to explore the area and test his skills as well as train his reflexes. It turned out that his reflexes were pretty good, Gohan noted, whenever he got a chance to see them. In fact, this space child gave most adults a run for their money, even now. he decided to take a punt and perhaps find a way to bring this child back to him in some way. And despite the resistant nature of Goku, Gohan was still fond of the boy. One day, over dinner, Gohan decided to open up more about his past and reveal to the young Goku that, back in the day, he was an expert martial artist, of course when he was much younger. He had a friend named Roshi, and a master named Mutaito. They had been on many exciting adventures when they were wide-eyed and naive. Oh, we got up to such mischief, Roshi and I. Master was very displeased because of it. But when the time came to act and do our duty, though, we did so. We gained so much strength and understanding of life because of it. Goku listened with intrigue, genuine intrigue. Okay, this sounded kind of interesting. In the end, Goku agrees to this regime. He would still go off and explore things based on his natural intelligence, but for a couple of hours a day, usually in the middle of it when there was not really much to do, he would come back and train with Gohan a bit. And after that, he would go out again and only come back then for dinner and sleep. One night, however, things changed. Goku had been out longer than usual. In fact, he hadn't come back for a couple of days. That was odd. Gohan went out to look for him. He didn't know whether the boy wanted to be found, but he felt honor bound to at least try and find him. This was not like him. But then it got dark. There was a full moon out tonight. When he spotted it, he was grateful that it could help to light the way for him, but not long after that, he could hear wild roars and stomps from a distance away. Gohan then got closer to the sounds, thinking that Goku might be curious enough to check it out for himself and he could find him the easy way. But instead, he saw a giant monkey stomping around like crazy. Gohan had never seen this kind of creature before. It was over 100 feet tall with red eyes and a tail that looked strikingly similar to Goku's, only bigger, and had a full moon to boot. Wait a minute, pondered Gohan. Does this make Goku a... Gohan chose to observe from a distance. He knew better than to try and reason with a massive monster. Despite his power, he was still small, and might end up as Toe Jam if he weren't careful. Yes, Gohan survives in this story. He followed a fair ways away to get a closer look, and watched all night as the creature just milled around the forest, all through the night. But when the moon started to fade at the first glimpses of sunrise, the beast grew tired and weary, like it could barely contain and control its frame. It lay down on the forest floor and closed its eyes. Not long after that, it started to change and shrank down to the size of a Goku. Gohan knew it. He was right. This child could change at the full moon. He picked up the sleeping Goku and took him home. When the child woke up in his bed, he frantically darted out of it and tried to understand where he was. He then saw Gohan making lunch and looking casually back at him. Good morning, Goku. Sleep well? Goku was looking haggard, feeling terrible. Did you see? See what? Oh, that giant werewolf thing. Yes, I did. Hi, you are quite big and scary, I can tell you. Goku looked very confused. Is that what happened to him? He'd spent the last couple of days trying to figure out what had happened because it had been night time and he was meant to come back. Then he saw the moon, but then things went black, and the next thing he remembered, he was on the ground and usually without clothes, and it was daylight. He was trying to figure this out for days. That's why he hadn't come back. And now Gohan had found him and he was back here. Despite being sane in physiology, this transformation was news to him. He had only reached the age now where his body could process the waves needed to transform into that giant form. But this scared him instead of thrilled him. He could do that, but he had no control over it. This was bad. For the meantime, Goku made sure to come back before dark when there was a full moon in the sky. The fact that Gohan hadn't cast him out or anything made him feel all the more grateful. Yes, he still didn't love this guy like he did in the original, but he was starting to grow slightly more fond of him, in a way. It's sort of respect as a teacher and a constant, Another trick that Gohan came up with, should Goku find himself out late at night and having no means to get home in time and avoid seeing the moon, take some glasses with you. Gohan had a pair of Roshi shades on him and gave them to Goku. It's best to be careful. Goku nodded and thanked the gent. Can we train now?
Yes, okay, Goku.
Goku wasn't looking to have his tail removed, mind, because he associated that with the form, but he wanted to understand it. But the trouble is that he had nothing to go on. He had nothing. But now, he just viewed it as some kind of a curse that had been placed upon him by some unknown entity. The training then continued, and Goku was starting to get quite powerful. In the original, at age 750, he had a power level of 10, since most of his gains from an infant were from doing basic chores and lifting, as well as his Saiyan physique being simply better than a human's, but at the same time, he was kind of doing it aimlessly without a Gohan there. But now though, with Gohan being there, he was able to increase his potential and focus, having a slightly better sense of discipline. Again, he's not a good egg like he was in Dragon Ball, but he was gaining more and more manners in a way, and knowing when to control himself. It did lead to him having a more rebellious and cavalier streak than his original archetype had had, but he at least was playing along with the way that Earth worked. Well, that's better than a regular Saiyan. I'm going to go off of Gohan having a power level of 130 at this point in the story, since he had aged a bit and was living a quiet life. Unlike Roshi, who had trained himself so much, he now basically had immortality and a buff form. But Gohan didn't have that, and with his longer oversight of Goku's development, by the time we actually get to age 750, Goku's power level is not 10, but 70. Granted, he's still not as strong as Gohan despite the amount of training that he had undergone. But Gohan wasn't going at full pelt with this training, I must say, because there was no need to. There was no immediate peril. But he was training him enough to keep Goku interested at least. This then of course led to the moment when Bulma arrived on the scene. However, she didn't run him over with her car though, but this time she came about to their house driving straight up to it, whilst the pair of them were busy training. She watched them for a while, curious, even though that she knew one of the Dragon Balls that she was locating was right there in the house, and these two were outside completely unaware of her being there. She could go inside and try and steal it, since it was only an old man and a young boy. She could handle it. But something kept her from doing it right away. Goku spotted her and rushed over to her and confronted the young lass.
Whoa! Easy, kid! What are you doing here, huh?
Goku said with anger in his voice. I think it's important to note that Goku had barely seen other people. Gohan then shouted for him to calm down.
You're scaring the young girl, Goku. She means you no harm.
Huh? Girl?
Then it dawned on him. Oh, this was the first time he had seen a young girl before. Gohan had talked about them, but Goku had never seen one up close. He then remembers how he's supposed to act around girls, and he sort of goes onto autopilot, reading from a script, instead of this being a natural instinct. He then calms down and apologizes curtly and morosely, instead of being more upfront and genuine in the original.
Okay, well, what are you doing here, ma'am?
Being polite wasn't in his rulebook, clearly. Bulma then calmed down and asked whether he could talk to his grandpa. Goku felt a little bit annoyed with being sidelined like this, talked down to, but Gohan complied and walked over. When Bulma explained that she was looking for things called Dragon Balls, Gohan was actually curious. When she pulled out one of the examples that she had in her pocket, Gohan's eyes lit up.
Oh, so that's what they are. Yes, I've got one of those, only with 4 stars on it instead of those 2.
Bulma was excited. She was right, and she was very keen to see this 4-star ball. She rushed in before the old man could open the door for her, and she stared at the orb on the purple cushion. Goku was watching on with suspicion. This girl didn't look particularly nice or as formal and respectable as what Gohan had talked about. In fact, this girl acted like a boy, crass and very forward. That is strange. As Gohan and Bulma were talking, Goku slunk in and looked through Bulma's bag and found a device. It was round in shape and had a green screen. He then clicked the top button and it beeped. He then dropped it out of fear. It had 3 yellow dots on it though. Bulma then turned around when she heard the beeping and shouted at Goku for messing with her things and told him to put it down. But Goku, being this Goku right now, pushed back.
Don't shout at me, you! What is this doohickey?
Bulma stomped over.
If you must know, you little brat, it's a radar. It can help find the other Dragon Balls, okay? Oh yeah? For what reason?
Bulma then had to try and reason with Goku, but the young kid wasn't budging. Gohan then tried to calm the situation down, as the two of them were starting to get into a really heated argument.
Listen, Goku. I'm sure that young Bulma here will give the ball back when she's done with it. I don't mind her borrowing it for a while. It was only going to be collecting dust anyway.
Goku eyed her still with suspicion.
Well, I still don't trust her.
Well, why don't you go with her and keep an eye on her then?
Goku looked interested at that, but Bulma was horrified.
Not bad idea, old man. Okay, Bumley. It's Bulma! Whatever. I'm gonna keep my eye on you and make sure you don't try and steal the precious thing.
Bulma was really angered by this. She didn't want to have to play babysitter for a kid. She was meant to be off on her own mystical adventure, on her own. And instead, she was having to look after a kid, and a cantankerous one at that. Gohan then explained that Goku could be useful in making sure she was kept safe around here.
You'll be surprised, Bulma. He's quite plucky when he wants to be, when he's in the right mood. Besides, wouldn't you like to go on a proper adventure, Goku? Outside of the forest?
Now this was how to get through to Goku. He had never been outside the forest before, and this girl was his ticket out of here? Okay.
Now remember to take your glasses with you, okay?
Goku stomped over and took the glasses. Bulma whipped around.
Hey, wait! I didn't agree to this!
I'm sorry, I can't help you, young lass. Goku's made his mind up. You've got him whether you like it or not.
He chuckled to himself as the pair glowered at one another. It was decided. Goku and Bulma were off to find the Dragon Balls as reluctant partners in crime. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. If you like this idea of Goku and Bulma's adventure changing, check out the Gine What If here, where Gine and Gohan gave their blessing for the pair to go off on an adventure. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!